welcome back to another episode of Debt Collection 101. Today we are doing an all-inclusive Arbite guest video. So we have Caitlin and Alex, both from Arbite. I'm Ashley, and we also have Brittany here helping me host this. And today we're going to be touching on a huge topic in the ARM industry right now, and that is mislabeled calls. So Caitlin and Alex have some really great tips on this, so we're just going to jump right in. And we are clearly seeing an uptick in calls being mislabeled in our industry right now. So can you just explain why agencies who are otherwise compliant and legitimate getting marked as spam or scam?
Yeah, great question to start off with. So I think it kind of comes in on two fronts. Starting out, of course, we say it in every video, but nobody wants to be called by a debt collector. It is how it is. And with that said, a lot of what we're seeing being a big contributing factor to our clients' calls in particular are consumers actually labeling their calls with the carriers. And this is a process we've actually tested out ourselves. We've gone through on the carriers, seen how easy or difficult it is, and really in a matter of seconds, that's how simple it is to go into one of these carriers and label a call as suspicious or label it as something that is going to have a label contribute to it. So carriers, applications, there's a lot of new applications out there, operating systems, they really crowdsource all this data that's coming in from the consumers, and they use that data to decide, if these calls are something that they should be applying a label to or ultimately blocking. Now, on the other hand of things, you've got kind of the piece that I think it's the better piece because you have a little more control over it, and that's the piece of your volume. So a lot of what we're seeing, it just has to do with call patterns. Nobody out there, I don't think, has a crystal clear idea of what that algorithm looks like, but we'll get into it in a second of kind of what some numbers we're thinking might be kind of the good benchmarks are there. But if you're using a lot of volume for your outbound calls, that's definitely going to be something that's kind of flagging to the carriers or these applications to say, hey, this call pattern looks a little suspicious, and maybe we might want to consider applying a label to it.
Yeah, and really, I mean, it's not just the one thing I think is important to know, it's not just debt collectors that are affected by call labeling. Everything is. So, I mean, we've had our number labeled. It's so much more than just, there's so much that goes into it. I got DoorDash calling me the other day and it was labeled as a potential scam. So it's not just debt collectors. It's kind of just, unfortunately, it isn't like the most well implemented system yet. Obviously, like DoorDash isn't a scam. We call people, sometimes it's been labeled, our number has been labeled that way. So there's a lot of kinks that need to be worked out of the system just in general, I would say, from that side of things. So yeah, it's super frustrating for customers, though. I can definitely,
Yeah, it's a huge issue. And I don't think everyone knows how these labels do come about. So I think, Caitlin, the way you explained it is great. So hopefully people, kind of learn something on here and then take this with them as well.
Now, Caitlin, I know you kind of alluded to maybe what clients can do, but overall, what would you say clients can do right now to prevent or fix really the call labeling problem, if anything?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, if you're having problems with call labeling, the good news is there's definitely strategies you can do to mitigate it. So you're not just at a total loss. But again, kind of one of the things that I mentioned earlier is that volume can be a big thing that plays into it. And again, I know so many things with call labeling are a little bit of a gray area. This isn't, a hard and fast number where it's definitely, if you stay under this, you're going to be good. But it seems like kind of the magic number right now, at least, is 250 calls per number per day. So if you're looking at your agency and you're saying to yourself, okay, I want to send out 10,000 calls on my dialer today, or just distribute it across the numbers, you're really going to want to just try and think about how many calls you want to get out there, and then use that 250 number as a bit of a benchmark and kind of work backwards to think about how many numbers you should have just in your collection of numbers, and kind of cycle through those numbers so that you're not having any one number that's getting the brunt load of that traffic and having those labels get applied to it. So really just kind of running that quick calculation, whether that's a daily or a weekly thing for you, and kind of deciding what you need to hold in terms of stock and numbers is going to be a great first strategy for you.
I think the best thing people can do is use this. One of the best things, I guess, is just use the service. I mean, there's services out there that you can get, like your branded caller ID. I think that's probably the best thing. It costs money, but unfortunately it's costing you money to not use that service, more money than that service costs, a significant more amount more, I think. But there's definitely a ton of them out there that you can use that'll basically, when you call somebody's cell phone, it's just going to show up your logo and the name of your business, and registering your numbers with all the call labeling providers. That's something that we do for customers already, but doing that, it's something that anybody can do really. And then each of those providers even offer a paid service that you can use to, if you really, want to go down the rabbit hole and fix this solution, like that's the way to do it. Unfortunately, there is no any free option isn't really the best, isn't a great solution. If you want to fix this, like really fix it, you're going to have to, commit some of your budget to it. But the ROI on that is probably going to be significant, is going to be pretty good. Anyone here can imagine you already have that kind of poor reputation with consumers as a debt collector. So when you call and it says you're a scam, it's now where does good luck. So yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry. No, I think like a good point that you made there too is, taking time to invest in this solution, because so many people I know struggle with this, and it can feel difficult to invest, especially when you're already having higher employee costs and just all these costs across the board. But another place that I think people don't always, it feels a little indirect to affect call labeling, but kind of working smarter instead of harder, and implementing solutions for scrubbing out your list ahead of time. So, I know there's a lot of great solutions out there that can kind of help with litigators or things like that. Skip tracing solutions, reassign number database can be great to make sure that the numbers that you're calling are still actively applied to people, and really just cleaning up those lists before you assign them to your dialer or whatever other calling methods that you're doing. Doing that ahead of time is really just going to make sure that the people that you are contacting are going to be the people who really are the best fit for you to be contacting them on that method. And I know a lot of people that we talk to, they mentioned that they do have clients who, they require them to have that initial touch with every account. Totally understand that. For people who have, kind of taken this more tailored approach to kind of scrubbing down their list, cleaning them up ahead of time, I think what they found is that by doing that approach, not only do they have a better ROI for themselves, but it's a better ROI for the clients long term. And I think, if you have those clients who they're a little hesitant to change that approach, kind of showing them the data, I think showing data is always the best way to kind of get change in there. So just another great way that you can kind of start chipping away at that problem before it even gets started with your call labeling.
Awesome. Yeah. Earlier, I was just going to touch on what Alex said, and I think that's great. I know I've had these conversations with clients before, and the short-term solution is always just swapping numbers out, which is great short-term and easy to do, but definitely long-term is going through, a specific number management company who does specialize in stuff like that. So.
Yeah, it's like, honestly, it feels bad as a agency, I'm sure, because this is like brand new. It's just a brand new expense. No, you didn't, 10 years ago, you didn't have to, there was no call labeling. You didn't have to pay $6,000 a year to manage your numbers and have call labeling. So now this is just brand new out of nowhere. So it's kind of, I can see the hesitation, and it's understandable. Especially when the system isn't as flushed out as it could be right now. It's not really that accurate. I think anyone with a cell phone knows that it's not that accurate too. So yeah, hopefully it gets better over time though.
Yeah, that would be great for everyone. All right. So a lot of the time we hear like consumers, telling agencies that their number is coming up as spam or scam and things like that. But are there any other ways clients can determine if they have a call blocking or labeling problem?
Yeah, I would definitely say, again, if you're kind of looking to just dip your toes in, maybe you're not ready to go on a full-blown solution yet. Monitor your connection rates closely. That's going to be, your one of your biggest indicators to see if there is a problem with call labeling, and kind of just keeping a close eye on that. If you see those dropping off throughout the day or throughout the week, that might be an indicator that something's happening to your numbers that's causing them to be labeled and causing that rate to drop down. So again, as many of these metrics that you can have in your agency, and kind of just keep an eye on things, have that historical data and compare over time. That's going to give you a good snapshot into how those metrics are changing over time and what might be affecting it.
I feel like I'm a shill for these call labeling solution providers, but really like paying for a solution that'll tell you is the easiest way to monitor if your numbers are being labeled, because they'll just tell you in a UI. You'll just see a list of your numbers and if they're being rated a certain way. But yeah, obviously your analytics on your own end, you can kind of see it. It's kind of a reactive approach though, by the time you notice that, how many people have not paid you because of it. That's why just, and that's a reactive approach is you're losing a ton of money. I think that's the wrong. I think a reactive approach is obviously it's the first step and easy, but I don't think it's a good. I don't think it's like a good long-term solution. But if you really can't afford the budget of that software, then yeah, I guess you have no other choice. But it's not going to really save you the money that you're missing in between those like 2 days before you, maybe 3 days before you notice, like all those consumers that just didn't answer, that will never maybe pay you because they answered and it said scam and now they think poorly of your agency or something. But you can call your own numbers, right? I don't know if someone said that yet, but that's something that you could do for sure. I'm sure you probably have every carrier in your office, right? The people that work there just call their cell phones kind of every day. Maybe have it 3 times set up times during the day, every couple hours where you just call people's phones. If it's being labeled as scam on T-Mobile, it's being labeled as scam on all T-Mobile. It's not just like, certain parts of the country. So you could just have that as a test, kind of set it up. Takes 30 seconds every 3 hours or something. I'm not sure, but that could definitely help as a cheap alternative to kind of detect if they're being labeled. But what do you do when they're being labeled? You're going to find out now what. It's kind of when you buy a new number, and yeah, again, like that's a reactive approach, kind of short-term solution. It helps obviously, but again, it's do that forever. Now you have all these numbers. Your consumers are getting confused. They don't know what numbers to call. It turns into a spaghetti monster.
Yeah,
So register your numbers.
Definitely. I agree a lot with what you said about it being a reactive thing too. I think, everything that you look at in business, it's always better to kind of take that more proactive approach. And thinking about that, we've recently talked to an agency who they're really taking a strong digital approach to their communications. And I think that's another, thing that you can kind of do up front to help with that call labeling before it's even a problem, is diversifying your outreach attempts across those other channels. So again, I know there's a lot of people out there who are still a little concerned about texting, still a little concerned about email. And I think just like everything else, dipping your toes into it, seeing if it's going to be something, but kind of cutting down on those contact points that go out on your phone numbers, and just having a few more options for consumers that they might prefer better can be another great way to kind of get ahead of it before it's a problem. So certainly look into those solutions. And I think kind of staying in the theme of being reactive too, even looking at things as simple as your messages that you're sending out to consumers. I know a lot of people, when we talk to them right now, they might have a couple months, or in some cases even a couple of years in between when they're changing out their messages, but really just tailoring it, spending the time up front. We talked about this, that just these small changes can have a really big impact. At the volume that happens in our industry, a 1% increase in the people who are having a positive response to your message can have such a big impact. So really spending the time upfront, making sure it's going to be something that resonates with consumers. If it makes sense to maybe hire a voice actor, or having just somebody recorded in their natural voice as opposed to using a text-to-speech option, can all be things that really just will help the consumers resonate with your message more, and again, kind of help prevent that call labeling in as many scenarios as we can.
I think that you gave the best solution, and it's for all of this, and it's the use different channels of communication. Because even these, as I'm sitting here saying, use these call labeling services, they're not, again, those aren't even perfect, because the call labeling system is still flawed, and it's, legitimate businesses are being mislabeled. Like, so yeah, you don't have that problem with email. Well, you do, but it's way more, that's like what, been in you that's flushed out for the past 20 years. So, there's definite best practices for email to avoid spam labels and such. So you have a way better chance, I think, of managing it there. But that's definitely like the most proactive thing you can do. It's probably to start using modern communication channels.
Mhm.
Yeah. To think about those other channels too. I know in a recent webinar, we kind of had a heated debate on if social media is ever going to come into play for people. And I know you don't think it is. I think it's going to come into play at some point. But I think like trying to think about how you could use that in a meaningful way. Brand reputation, again, such a big piece of this. And there's kind of the route that you can go where you're not paying for it. And then there's the more pay to play option. So again, being kind of plugging in those labeling solutions out there. A lot of them do offer ways where you can brand your calls. So right when they're coming into consumers, it's not just that it's not having a label on it, but it'll actually show up with your brand information. If you have a great logo, that can show up as well. So that can really help. But on the flip side, if you don't want to invest in one of those solutions, just building out a great website, having a social media presence. Maybe you're not DMing consumers on Facebook, but showing them that you're real people, your real office, this isn't a scam, and just building out that reputation so that, I think we're all very familiar with, you get reached out to by a company, do a quick Google search, and you want to be the person in the driver's seat of what is showing up in those results when the consumer is looking for it, and not all those companies who are going to label you as having problems. So I think really getting ahead of that brand piece too can just be another one of those things that's just a preventative measure, and you can make it as simple or as complicated as you want it to be.
Yeah, that's great feedback and totally agree with that. That is all the questions we have for you guys today. Do you have any last minute tips or tricks or any more information that you want to share? Try to help these people. I know we got a lot of good information out of you guys today, so thank you. But if you wanted to add anything else before we wrap up, that would be great.
I would say the biggest thing is just, again, take those small steps. You don't have to dive in day one and completely wipe out the problem. But I think just, every week, if you focus on one of these steps and kind of just work towards improving it, that can be great. Of course, if you have questions about different options that are out there, feel free to reach out to any of us here. We'd be more than happy to kind of point you in some directions of things that we've seen work for people. But yeah, thanks for checking out the episode.
Yeah, I think this, there's a lot of small steps you can take, like Caitlin's mentioned, and just kind of slowly implementing them. Do the thing like, I would say create like a list of all the things that you can possibly do, and then rank them based on how much resources it's going to take and how much time, and just kind of cherry pick the ones that are the easiest, right? There's like 5 things you can probably do that take very little resources and very little time that'll have somewhat of an impact on this, and just work your way down, right? I think that's probably the way to approach it. And then over the next, year, like start implementing more and more solutions to it. But yeah, that's what I would say to kind of do. And of course, feel free to reach out if you need help, coming up with what things to do. But there's a ton of information in this video and other things that I think that there's a lot of information out there on what you can do to fix, or to mitigate, I should say, mitigate the issue, because there's probably necessarily not really a fix, right? But to mitigate it.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah, I was
thank
just
you.
gonna.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, my biggest takeaway from this is it's a tough situation right now, but we're not helpless, So it seems like there's like little stuff we can start implementing today, plan for the future. So it seems like it's encouraging though that there are some simple solutions to kind of help everyone out.
For sure. Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today and all the great feedback on this huge topic right now, not only in the arm industry, but in other industries. So I hope you guys watching got something out of this video. And like Caitlin and Alex both mentioned, if you do have questions or you are looking for somewhere to start, feel free to reach out to us. We're more than willing to help you guys. So thank you for joining and watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.